Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this presentation of a decade of the Missouri Hunger Atlas, Information for Action. This is a panel presentation that was originally presented to the Ag, Food, and Human Values Virtual Conference on June 14th, 2021 by Dr. Mary Hendrickson, co-director of MU's Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security, and myself, Stephen Henness, a PhD student in the Division of Applied Social Sciences at the University of Missouri. Today, we are going to introduce you to a tool called the Missouri Hunger Atlas and give you a little bit of a background on the history of this resource and how it came about. And this is a presentation that was given during AFHV's virtual conference to panel 682 on creating sources and archives. So over the course of more than a decade, researchers at the University of Missouri's Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security have produced 5 editions of the Missouri Hunger Atlas. The atlas visually engages readers to better understand hunger and food insecurity in our state. Through a series of indicator maps and tables, the atlas details the extent of food insecurity in all 114 Missouri counties and the city of St. Louis. The atlas also assesses the performance of a host of public and private programs intended to help people struggling with acquiring sufficient amounts and qualities of food. In providing the atlas, the center seeks to raise awareness among Missourians about hunger and food insecurity in their communities and the state, as well as provide information on the public and private programs addressing this issue. The atlas is designed to help public and private decision makers assess trends in need, as well as help them assess performance. So in this presentation, we're going to discuss briefly how the atlas has come about, the choice of indicators and where the data comes from, as well as how the atlas has evolved over time and how we see various groups across the state making use of it for policy and action, as well as a few thoughts on lessons learned and directions for the future. So let's talk a little bit more about the background of the Atlas and the Interdisciplinary Center. In the year 2000, a team of University of Missouri rural sociology faculty and students partnered up with local nonprofits on social action research topics identified by those organizations. It was important to this team to empower local grassroots organizations that might not otherwise have had the staff capacity or the budget for research. And so with guidance from Dr. Sandy Raccoon, the group founded the Missouri Action Research Connection to help those community organizations address research questions they identified to better accomplish their goals and missions. Among the first partners was the Central Missouri Food Bank, which needed help in finding a new location and learning more about its clients to better meet their nutritional needs. The first project was a success and led to additional partnerships. And by 2003, a group of faculty and students from MU's College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, or CAFNR, coalesced around this focus on food security issues. In 2004, the group formally organized as the MU Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security. Faculty representing 4 departments successfully applied for the center's first competitive grant a year later. And the center went on to complete one of the largest regional food pantry client household surveys in the country, interviewing more than 1,300 clients in the food bank's 29 county region. So from that history, the mission of ICFS has become to better understand and address the causes and the consequences of hunger and food insecurity. We aim to provide more food secure communities through research, teaching, and engagement. Over the years, a number of faculty and students have become affiliated with the center, and the work has continued to grow, new projects initiated. So with that background, let's talk a little bit more about the Hunger Atlas then. The first Missouri Hunger Atlas was compiled in 2008 in response to rising trends in food insecurity in the state. Data from 2005 showed Missouri was one of 17 states with rising rates of food insecurity with hunger, and among the 5 highest states over the first half of the decade. The Atlas sought to meet the decision support needs of policymakers and advocates for reliable Missouri-specific data on hunger and food security in one location. So the atlas filled this gap by providing a snapshot of food insecurity, hunger need, and program performance and success. And since then, 5 editions of the Missouri Hunger Atlas have been published in 2008, 2010, 2013, 2016, and 2019, as well as special editions of the Atlas for the Kansas City and St. Louis metro areas in 2010. As a data product, about every 3-year intervals, the Atlas also complements other programs of the ICFS portfolio, which include Missouri Eats, Grow Well Missouri, Food Pantry Research, and Power Up Your Pantry. So the question you may be asking is, why is this important? And I think we would all attest that it's a significant area of work. Research has demonstrated the devastating social and economic impacts of hunger, which we know are more intensively absorbed by marginalized groups and vulnerable populations. COVID-19 has also revealed significant flaws in the current food system and exposed the need for greater resiliency. So now the Missouri Hunger Atlas takes on added meaning as we double down and seeking to better understand and address post-pandemic effects of food insecurity on households and communities across the state. So with that background, what we're going to do now is give you a look at the Atlas and how it is put together. Briefly, I'm going to touch upon the organization of the Atlas, show the indicators that make up the tool, what data sources are used to produce the Atlas. I want to touch upon several distinctives which set it apart as a decision support resource, and then again conclude with some lessons learned from the first decade and a few thoughts toward the future. This first slide gives a glance at the organization of the Atlas with a background section, county profile indicators. There is a section devoted to need indicators, as well as one devoted to performance indicators. And then that comes together in a section called overall need and performance, where the results on various measures are brought together into a composite variable to be able to make some comparisons at a high level. So we're going to take a look at these in more detail as we go forward. The next slide is going to show you a little bit about how indicators come to be in the Missouri Hunger Atlas. Originally, the team of researchers looked at literature on indicators of hunger and food insecurity, and also what data was available from agencies that was reliable and could be used to report findings. And as expected, over the course of 10 plus years, those indicators have evolved and there has been some refinement. But the team arrived at a kind of framework or 4 criteria for determining what goes in the atlas. So these are 4 tests for what makes a good indicator. There's the proxy power criterion, which asks, does this indicator or measure say something of central importance about the issue of hunger? Communication power asks, do multiple stakeholders agree on what this particular indicator is measuring? Data power is about the quality of the data and if it's available for all counties in the state, and also if it's gathered consistently so that it can be used to track changes over time. And finally, and importantly, is the policy power criterion, which asks, can we watch and track trends on this measure over time to see if that issue of hunger is impacted? So these criteria really form the framework for consideration and decisions about what indicators go in the Atlas, as well as what future indicators may be added. So in this next slide, let's take a look at kind of the set of indicators and measures at a high level. The goal of the Missouri Hunger Atlas is to approximate or estimate and report the true extent of hunger. And of course, that is a very complex, very multifaceted phenomenon. This 360-degree approach enfolds different demographic or contextual variables. It includes some proxy variables, and it also includes some program outcome variables. And really the work of the Atlas team is detective work, looking for evidence, recognizing that each indicator can offer a clue, but also realizing there may be additional clues out there. And so again, over the 10 plus year life of the Atlas, there has been some refinement. Some have been added, some have been dropped off, but to more closely approximate and estimate hunger and food insecurity. So it is a process, it's an ongoing conversation that is dynamic and changing with diverse stakeholders who use the Atlas. The next slide then takes a look at the indicators that are included in the 2019 data book. And again, you can see the organization here. The background section includes measures of food insecurity and food insecurity with hunger at the state level. The county profile data, which provides those local results that many people are seeking, includes demographic measures, some health measures, as well as economic measures. The needs section really focuses on eligibility for key programs such as SNAP or food stamps, WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, and the National School Lunch Program. And then the performance section looks at the participation in those programs at the county level, or the reach that they are having. And you'll see an emphasis on measures related to children and minors, and also on people who are both enrolled and participating, to acknowledge to what extent programs are reaching their intended audience. So this next slide gives just a summary of the data sources or providers that are used in the Missouri Hunger Atlas. So you can see 3 state agencies, Feeding America, 6 regional food banks, and 1 independent food bank, Operation Food Search in St. Louis. Data from the U.S. Census and the American Community Survey, as well as 2 federal agencies round out those data sources. And the data used in the Atlas is secondary data, and so therefore it is fairly accessible, and as we'll point out later, shows potential to be replicated or similar data collected perhaps for other geographies or other states. And a key part of this whole process is that partnership with the data providers and the cooperation of many different parties in order to provide the data necessary to produce the data book. So let's talk about 3 distinctives of the Missouri Hunger Atlas as a resource. And we will talk in more detail on each of these in just a moment. But the first is that it is really designed as a tool for comparison versus absolute measurement. The next is that it includes a food affordability measure, which was added in 2013 to provide a new dimension to the conversation about the affordability of food for families in Missouri. And also the overall comparison of hunger need versus performance stands out as something that's unique and novel to the Missouri Hunger Atlas. And this has been reinforced through a historical analysis of the Atlas over 10 plus years, the development of a code book or a technical appendix so that those results can be replicated, again, perhaps for other geographies or for Missouri going into the future, and also through meetings with various stakeholder groups that have pointed out the value that they find in the resource. So let's talk about each of those distinctives just a little more directly. And here you're going to see some examples from the Missouri Hunger Atlas data book. This first one is a profile page of Adair County in north central Missouri. And this page includes all of the results for that county on one printable page. And here you can see the design for comparison. It includes percentages on the various indicators that we saw a moment ago. It includes a lot of ranks that fit within one of 5 categories from very low to very high. And through seeing these results, then local decision makers can compare how the county is doing across all of these measures over time, looking at across various data books, or to compare county to county, or to compare a county to the state averages. And so again, an illustration of how the data book is set up for comparisons. This next slide provides an example of the food affordability measure, which is a novel measure that was introduced in 2013. And this also emphasizes that the Missouri Hunger Atlas relies upon a lot of data visualization and maps in order to communicate the results. So the food affordability measure is the percent of income needed to meet a household's basic needs, and of course is an important factor in determining the quantity, the quality, the types of food that families can afford to purchase. So this is calculated using weekly median household income and the average cost of meals per Feeding America. Once again, introduced in 2013 to add something new to the conversation, to recognize the difficulties that too many families face in trying to fulfill their food needs on a limited budget. And then this third slide gives a look at the overall need versus performance results. Again, distinctive of the Atlas. This overall result is calculated on the basis of a composite of weighted variables from the needs section and the performance section. And then counties are ranked from 1 to 115. And then as the results of need and performance are combined, that allows for further analysis of where counties fall. So for instance, if a county is low on need but high on performance, that would be on one end of the spectrum. Whereas if a county falls as high need and low performance, that would fall on the other end of the spectrum. And so whether it's hunger advocates, whether it's extension specialists, whether it's program managers, this provides an analysis that would allow to probe further about what might not be working well in a certain county context, or what is really working well and what best practices might be gleaned to be applied in other geographies. So let's talk about some of the lessons learned from the first 10 years of the Missouri Hunger Atlas. As mentioned, it is a go-to source for a number of different stakeholder groups. So this includes food banks, it includes policymakers and their staff, it includes extension specialists, academics, hunger advocates, nonprofit leaders, all who come to the Atlas with different needs, different uses. So whether it is needs assessment, whether it is crafting funding proposals, whether it is seeking information on the well-being of communities within a specific district, or utilizing it as a training resource or a toolkit for local volunteers, or for program managers who are seeking additional information as they look to best accomplish the mission and the reach of hunger-related programs. There are a variety of uses. And so groups such as Feeding Missouri, Empower Missouri, the Missouri Community Action Network, and the Boone Indicators Dashboard are a few examples of specific groups and applications. And one thing that stands out perhaps among the historical analysis is that the Atlas also can be used and is being used as a conversation starter with community leaders. So I think it has stood out that what you measure signals what you value. And various stakeholders have found this is a terrific tool to be able to initiate a conversation, to motivate some action, or to move in a direction that hopefully leads to impact. So as we think about the Missouri Hunger Atlas going forward, that's an important realization that can drive what indicators or what measures also may be included. So bringing it to a close here, as we think about the future or perhaps the next 10 years of the Missouri Hunger Atlas, some of the steps that we can see on the near horizon would be to enhance the indicators that are in the Atlas, including looking at new demographic variables, other measures of hunger need and performance. Right now, the Interdisciplinary Center is in the process of designing and launching a Missouri Hunger Atlas web application that will have more regular updates. And so that will modernize the tool and make it more accessible, as well as allow users to track trends over time. And also very interested if there may be partnerships to replicate the Missouri Hunger Atlas model beyond Missouri in other geographies and perhaps other states. So if you're listening and you are interested, we have contact information where you can find out more about that going forward. And on that note, we have included in this presentation, as we wrap things up, a few more links and resources where you can learn more. So if you would like to see the Missouri Hunger Atlas data books that were mentioned, those are available on the Interdisciplinary Center's website as PDF files. And you can also check out the COVID-19 and the Food System webinar series that was sponsored earlier this year. If you want to learn more about other ICFS research and projects, of course, there are links and more information on the website. You can also follow the center on social media, LinkedIn and Twitter. And we've included Dr. Hendrickson's email address here if you'd like to reach out directly. So once again, we appreciate your attending this session and this overview of the Missouri Hunger Atlas, the first 10 years and beyond, as it has been a tool for information and action, and we look forward to how it can also provide key decision support going forward. Thank you so much, and have a great day.